Greetings. Oh. I'm going to do that.
Right. So, ready?
Welcome.
I'll stop.
I'm good, yeah.
Good. So, over 10 years ago, I was at Chicago TARDIS, and I convinced them, because I was a big fan of a certain part of a comedy show, to do an Inspector Spacetime panel where we could do like a multiversal, who are the inspectors and things like that. And as a whim, I thought it would be really cool if I could get the guy who played Inspector Spacetime to actually do a video. And so I contacted the guy, I found the guy who played him, I contacted him and said, please, 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 would you do a video? And he was amazing, and he did a video as the inspector, so we were able to have this. And it was so popular that not only did it fill out the room, that when I was talking to Sean and Gallifrey, they said, hey, let's do it as well, and let's make it bigger. And if I'd have known that 10 years later, I'd still be here with Travis by my side, I would have still done it. It's close. It's a little, but I would have still done it, because in 10 years, Travis Richey has taken a character that literally had less than a few minutes of time in a TV show, and he's created an incredible characterization and an incredible, well, actually, to be perfectly honest, they might not know who you are. They might just be here because they're confused. So I just want to check. Does anybody here know what I mean when I say Inspector Spacetime? But does anybody here know what I mean when I say the Inspector Chronicles?
Wow.
Is there anybody here who has no idea what I'm talking about? Yeah, there's a few. So I think for the cheap seats, I think we're going to kind of need to do a little recap of what's been going on over the last 10 years. Kind of like our previously on Inspector Spacetime.
We can do that.
Can you do that?
I actually made, I wanted to catch people up because it's been several years, so I made some notes of some of like the major points that happened over the course of several years. I can't bring them up here, but I did make notes. And I was going to cover a bunch of those things, but I think we could probably remember.
Awesome. You have 1 minute.
You want me? About 10 years ago, there was a so-called Community, which I loved, so I went to meet the casting director, hoping that he would see how amazing I was and put me in the show. And he brought me in for an audition, and I auditioned for 2 characters in the show, and he cast me as the not Inspector Spacetime character. But then the guy they were going to have play Inspector Spacetime said he couldn't do it, and so they had me play Inspector Spacetime. And then this guy hosted a panel at Chicago, and it was amazing, and the internet was exploding. And they rushed me in to film more episodes because the internet was exploding. And this guy told the guys here at Gallifrey One that I should do a panel here, and so I did a panel here. And I did a panel here. We read the first season of the web series, which I wrote because I write web series, and I was hoping that NBC would want to do a web series, but NBC didn't want to do a web series. So I read the first episode here, and then the fans here helped me make the web series real by doing a successful Kickstarter campaign, and we made the web series in the second year. We came back and did more new stuff and did a second season web series prequel episode and with another successful Kickstarter, and that was amazing. And then we failed at a Kickstarter for season 2, the full thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let the whole thing go. Nobody wants it. But then Sylvester McCoy reached out to me and was like, I want to meet with you in London. And so I went to meet with Sylvester McCoy, and he joined the cast, and I'm like, well, instead of doing donations for a web series, let's make it a movie, and then we can do investors for a feature film. And so we rewrote the thing for a feature film, and we did another fundraiser to develop the feature film, and we did it, and we came back the next year and did a reading for the whole feature film, and that's the last thing we did here at Gallifrey, and now you're all caught up.
Right? So, did you get that? The people who knew? I think the thing we learned from that is it's because of me that Inspector Spacetime carried on.
Really
I didn't actually know that bit. I can go home now. That's fine.
Dude, yes, you are the reason. You are the core. Like, you know how have you ever gone back and be like, there's one purchase I made that affected my whole life, and for me, I know what that is. But as far as Inspector Spacetime goes, it's all because of you.
And you're doing this now publicly, because then when you get sued, eventually, he'll just go, it's Tony's fault.
No. There's no concern of that. Thankfully, because we ended up having to, when we did the original web series, we were going to do the Inspector Spacetime web series. And I got a single phone call from a lawyer from Sony who said, you can't do this. And I was like, I can because, I've looked into it, but I don't want to fight with my favorite show. So I'll change the name and the look of the character, which are the only two things that could possibly be construed as being yours, and so we'll not have a problem. And she was like, okay. And so we changed the title to Untitled Web Series about a space traveler who can also travel through time, and that everybody seemed to be okay with. And then we were going to make a movie, and we can't call a movie Untitled Web Series, so I decided to do the Inspector Chronicles as kind of a overarching title, and then we would make the Inspector Chronicles Untitled Motion Picture about a space traveler who can also travel through time. So that was.
And when was that decision made to make the film?
So it was after we failed at the Kickstarter for the full season 2, and then after Sylvester joined the cast.
So is that 2014?
Oh gosh. Okay. So 10 years ago it would have been 2012, and then we did the Kickstarter for the prequel episode in 2013. And then it would have been, I went to Marseille for the Marseille Web Fest for season 1 of the web series, and that's where I met Sylvester. So that would have been 2013 is when we decided
2013, and I think 2014 was when we were here, and you were talking about the movie. Possibly.
Yeah, 2014
you made a trailer.
Yep,
and we were talking about doing a comic, and so that's 2014. So that's 8 years ago.
Yep.
Where's the movie, Travis?
Yeah, where's the movie, Travis?
All right, so here's what happened. We did. After we did the development fundraiser for the movie, we spent like a year basically writing the movie and getting it ready, and it was pretty good. And then Lionsgate called and was like, "We would like your show, please, for a web series." And because they were trying to do Comic-Con HQ, remember that? And so we rewrote it as a web series with a bunch of great notes. We were going back and forth with they had readers doing readings for us and coverage.
I want to just check because you said you were going to go to the second season, and that didn't happen.
Right.
So you turned the second season into the film.
Yep.
And then they said they wanted a second season effectively. And
well, what they wanted was a web series, but they wanted us kind of to redo season 1 as part of the web series. So we were actually going to.
So you were going to Battlestar Galactica the entire thing.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
It was going to be an Evil Dead type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Where's this?
And then after all that work, they were like, no thanks. So then we had done all that work in redeveloping the script. So we, when Lionsgate passed, we put it all back into a feature film and did more rewrites and more rewrites. And then we actually got a couple of investors. We got our first investor for, I think it was $50,000, 55 actually. And then we got another for 20. We had $75,000 in the bank. And I got a loan for $20,000 because I was going to put my own money into it because it was something that was worth doing. Yeah. So essentially we had $95,000, and then I had no idea how to find more investors. I just didn't. And so we had that money for 2 years, which was the moratorium on having their money, and had to give it back. And so, and then pandemic happened. I lost my apartment, and my dog died. And I got a job I booked a gig in Japan. So I was like, well, I've got nothing going on here, so let's go to Japan. And then pandemic happened, and then here we are. And so the job in Japan ended early. I went to Nashville for a while, and I did some important things in Nashville that I'll talk about a little bit later. And then I just moved back to LA in June, immediately got into a car accident where I was rear-ended and my car was totaled and I had a couple of herniated discs in my spine. 7 months of rehab later, here I am. I have an apartment. I'm putting back roots in LA. I'm wonderful, guys. I'm really good. I've got a fire under my ass. And we have... Siri's like, what did you say about a fire? No, things are pretty good. I'm really looking forward to what's coming, and I think we have some fun stuff to show you guys too. So I've got, one of the reasons I haven't done a panel since the last one is I don't like to do panels where I don't have something new to show you guys. And frankly, not having the movie was embarrassing. Like I felt bad about it, and I know that, I mean, there's still people who I owe perks to for the movie, and like some of the things, like a cast photo, might not happen, but it's not over yet.
Well, I will say I'm a little worried that some of these people who weren't getting their perks have hunted down your dog, made sure you had to go to Japan, kicked you out of your house, hit you, crashed a car into you.
Our fans
Are you
would
being
never
hunted
do,
by
our
these
fans
people
would
now?
never
This
do
is
that.
worrying.
No. Our fans wouldn't do that.
Hashtag save Travis.
And I think, I hope I've been communicative enough with people that they feel confident that it's not like something that was, you know, and we did enough. We did.
Well, I think
2
the thing is,
seasons
I mean, sorry, interrupting for a second, is that you did everything you could to make this happen. But more importantly, Travis was
and
talking.
it is ready to shoot. Like if we got our budget, we could literally go into production. We could, but I would want to be one of the, and one of them says, you know, come back to me, but the one who was the first money in will now only be the last money in. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if I found $200,000, I could go back to her and say, okay, could we have that 50 again? And yeah.
Well, the other thing as well is, I mean, earlier on when we were discussing this in the green room, we were talking to somebody who works in film and TV, and when they heard that he actually honoured the moratorium and actually gave the money back, they looked at him like he was mad. And Travis's biggest crime was being an honest man in Hollywood, because obviously a lot of time people would find ways to try and keep it and move it on. And I think the fact that you did that has just shown testament to the fact that you really want this to work on your own terms, and you won't screw anybody over to do
Well,
this.
and it's more than that. I mean, I don't want the Inspector to be the only thing I ever do. Like, I want to have a career, right? And I believe in the goodness of people. I think that that's one of the things that I love about nerddom in general, is that generally we're people who care about optimism and the future of humanity, and we want to believe in the best in each other. And so I want people to believe in the best in me, and so yeah, being honest and straightforward is a no-brainer.
No, exactly. And one thing I was going to ask is, when you had Lionsgate saying we want to do all these things and stuff, did they want to keep like Sylvester and all those guys as well, or were they going, hey, we've got new, because San Diego HQ thing was a very weird beast.
It
and
was,
they had their own things they wanted to do.
And I think they were impressed that we had so many names attached, but we didn't get that far in the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. What else?
So,
any other questions? Oh, it's all on my YouTube channel, so it's just Travis Richey on youtube.com/Travis Richey, or if you search for the Inspector Chronicles, or quite frankly, if you search for Inspector Spacetime, you'll probably find, or Inspector Spacetime web series, you'll probably find it. Yeah, it's all there.
So one of the things that you did with the web series, and you were moving on, is you had the Inspector had his assistant or his companion, and you tried your best to keep the original idea going. You didn't obviously have a policeman beside you and things like that, but you were going off into your own directions. And then when you did the trailer for the movie, it was a completely different beast.
Right.
And it was, because it was this weird, I mean, hands up here who actually saw the trailer. There's the weird house where you see, Sylvester McCoy turns up and Robert Picardo's there and things like that. Okay, and I did wonder is, when you looked at changing it and doing the season, were you trying to go back to doing that kind of an adventure every couple of episodes, or were you trying to keep the story that you'd put together?
Yeah, so what we wanted to do for season 2, when it was originally season 2, is I told my writing partner I wanted to play with, we like to play with kind of broad tropes. So rather than poke fun at a specific element of a thing, the sci-fi tropes are what are really rich, right? And so the idea that I've always loved in sci-fi and was kind of ripe for parody is the idea where the main hero is basically being catfished and being told that everything that he believes is true isn't true. So Riker wakes up and he's told, oh, it's 20 years in the future, or, whatever. Or the doctor is in the house and they're like, oh, you're actually a real person. So we were playing with that, and so the Robert Picardo shows up in that house, and the tone shifts into this kind of mystery where he is obviously the villain, but the inspector doesn't know why. And in the meantime, he's being told he's actually a writer who writes about this guy who travels through space and time, and he's starting to believe he's his own character. And so that was the mystery of that of the second season, which then became the movie.
And you say you've obviously got a writing partner, and you've had people involved from the start.
Oh, yeah.
And are they still passionate for it? Are they still wanting to do it? Or are you finding that the pandemic? Because let's be honest, the pandemic changed a lot of things.
Yeah, it did. Well, I mean, I still am in contact with a bunch of people, and a couple of the guys, Brian Wiga, who designed the optic pocket knife and the Inspector's booth console, which is an amazing piece of engineering, is here, and we talk regularly about. Not regularly, I guess now, but we still talk about the things that we want to do with the next steps. And then Stephen Wong, who did all the behind-the-scenes stuff for the prequel episode, which is incredible. Like when you watch the web series, go to the special features playlist and check out some of the behind-the-scenes featurettes, because I just let him loose, and he did such amazing stuff for that. And we still talk about what's next for the project. And were I to be able to do it, I would absolutely be bringing the people who helped with those things along.
Now, actually going into that, because you brought, I think it was Gallifrey 2016, I think it was around that time, you brought the booth and the optic pocket knife to Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And there were people able to, and I think at one point someone said there was more people wanting to have a photo taken with the booth than there was with the TARDIS.
Guys, it is, if you have not seen it in person, it is so beautiful. I also took it to Communicon, and Dan Harmon and Yvette Nicole Brown, and all those guys have pictures of themselves with the booth, and it's so beautiful. And so, oh God, that's something I'm going to talk about later, but it's not the last you'll see of the booth. That's all I'm going to say.
And I've got to say, and of course, because it's an iconic phone booth from the UK, it's great for me because in my office I actually have on the wall, on a shelf, I have like a character options like 10th Doctor TARDIS. I've got the most recent Opus thing that came out, which is the Bill and Ted phone books, and then I've got this standard tourist phone booth because there's no booth model yet. There's no Inspector Spacetime figure yet.
Although we
get on with it.
We customized it for the real thing. Like for the first season, we actually rented a plain old phone booth, which cost us so much money to rent that when we were gearing up to the second season, most of the money from the prequel episode went towards building a custom booth for ourselves that could be taken apart. Like all the walls fly apart, so you can shoot inside it, and we have custom. Like the console is custom. The ornament on top of where it says telephone is normally a crown to recognize whoever is the monarch. But we actually designed a custom Inspector logo that one person designed, another person did a 3D model of, another person 3D printed, and so as a team they made that little element happen. Another guy created an entire Inspector language. That you can't actually see in anything, but it is on the console. It's printed in little plaques on the console, and all the digits, instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's all these like special language. It's amazing the amount of work that people did, and it still blows me away that it's something that I helped make happen. It's not something I did, it's something that other people did, and I just kind of was in the middle of it.
And you can't talk about the booth without talking about the voice.
Yeah. So Mayim Bialik, who is continuing to be bigger and bigger, is the voice of the booth. That was a great story. I worked at the Acme Comedy Theater as their video producer for a number of years, and Mayim came and hosted a show with us, did a comedy show like Saturday Night Live, where she was our guest host, and I produced the show. And then I went home to visit in Wisconsin, right outside Milwaukee, and I was flying home, and I was having a bad day. Like I think I had to be in the airport for like 4 hours or something, and I'm just like I had to go to row 29. I remember because that's my birthday, and I'm trudging to the back of the airplane, and I get to my seat and I look, and there's a sandwich sitting in my seat, and I go, "Is this your sandwich?" And this voice goes, "Travis?" And I look up, and it's Mayim Bialik. And how do you remember who I am? That's not the way it's supposed to be. And also, why are you flying in coach home from Milwaukee? Anyway, we sat next to each other, we chatted the whole way. And so when it came time to do this prequel episode, I was like, Mayim, I'd love for you to be involved in some way. I don't have any roles, but would you would you want to be the voice of the time machine? And she's like, yeah, come to my dressing room and we'll record the lines. And like, so we went to Warner Brothers and just recorded her lines, and it was fantastic. So.
And that's technically a contract written in blood, so she has to be the voice no matter what.
Yeah, well, she actually told me that I could use those in the movie, and so we wrote those same lines into the movie in different contexts.
Now, one thing I do want to, I know we've got other things to get around to, but one thing I do want to talk about is you're very well known for your comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're part of the Idiot's Lantern.
Yep.
I don't know, anybody, did you guys see them last night? Yeah. Bob Mitch over there as well. And you know, you're known for your comedy, and you know, and obviously Community was a comedy show,
Yep.
and the prequels had a bit of humor, but I was noticing as they went along, there was darkness sneaking in.
Yeah.
And one thing I've always said about you, and I said this to you earlier on today, is I think you are an amazing character actor.
Thank you.
And I think the best comedians can do the best serious.
Sure.
Robin Williams was a thing on this. And I did wonder is how dark would you have gone? I mean, we're talking like, you know, when you look at Seventh Doctor and you think of all the sort of the Cartmel master plan, were we looking at a kind of a Richey master plan to take you into a dark
Oh yeah,
area?
the Inspector has a lot of darkness in him because the way we were writing him, he has no humanity of his own. Like, he needs humans in order to be at all human. And so, and without that, he can be very dark and callous. Like, you kind of see a little bit of that when Piper dies, and he's like, the best he can come up with is, I like you. Genuinely, you know, and she's like, "What?" Sorry, I spoiled that. Spoiler.
Actually, I felt that was a genuinely funny moment though for me, and I feel bad for saying that, but I was like, "That's brilliant."
Oh, sure, but that's why we liked it because it's also funny. And but like comedians have a lot of comedians have darkness in them, and they turn to comedy as a defense mechanism. I did. I was born with Bell's palsy, so half my face is partially paralyzed, and I got teased mercilessly as a kid, and I turned to comedy as I would watch Saturday Night Live and take those characters in with me the next week when I was in middle school and whatnot, and that's how I became a comedian. But like I think a lot of those great comedians, where you see like Robin Williams has that like that deep sadness in his eyes in some of his movies, I feel that too. Like I get that, and so. Not only the Inspector, but a lot of the stuff that I've done, I have a very even resume as far as my acting goes. Like my other big thing that people would recognize me from is a recurring role on Pretty Little Liars, where I played a very creepy, like Norman Bates type guy. And yeah, when I was doing the second episode, like one of the actors who was doing the reading was like, "You're so creepy. Do you normally do like?" And I was like, "Creepy? No, I'm a comedy guy." But yeah, I think that kind of history makes it. And comedy is, if you talk to a lot of stand-up comedians, they think of their stand-up comedy as essentially therapy that you get to do in front of an audience. So like, even right now, you guys are just showering me with self-esteem, so thank you.
Come on, more self-esteem. More things. Stand up and give yourself esteem.
Later.
On the subject of obviously your character and things like that, I believe we have an interview.
Yes.
That we're gonna.
So what I want to do is I have a new series that I'm working on, and basically what I wanted to do is something where, since I've had so many characters, I wanted to do something where if those of you who have seen my YouTube channel in general, you know I have a show called Two Hot Guys in the Shower. It's essentially me answering viewer questions. So I wanted to do something
I'm going to stop for a second.
Yeah?
Because a few people went, yeah. And you were like, worry about her.
Oh no. I love
She's
people
going to
like
wear
that.
your face like a hat.
As long as I'm done with it. But yeah, so I wanted to do something like that, but kind of like inside the actor's studio, where I interview my character as like give kind of people a glimpse inside my head. So like I think you can escape out of that. And then
have you got it set up? Is it?
You know what? I'll just.
I don't think you had it set up. Quick, everybody! Let's look at what he's got on the computer.
All right. Hi, I'm Travis Richey. Over the course of my acting career, I've created dozens of characters for television and stage, for film and web series. And I'd like to help you get to know some of them a little better. So now, I invite you to come inside me. welcome to the very first episode of Come Inside Me with Travis Richey. I'm Travis Richey, and on today's episode, we've got a real treat. I'm talking with perhaps my most famous character, the Inspector. Hello, Inspector. Thank you for joining me.
Well, greetings, Travis, and inspectators throughout the interwebs. Thanks for coercing me into this completely voluntary time. Just sitting on the couch, are we?
No, not just sitting, talking too.
Wonderful. As an immortal, I don't particularly care how I waste my time, but if this is how you want to spend your day, well, then you do it.
Okay. Well, I think it's great to chat with you. I know a lot of your fans have been disappointed that you haven't had more adventures recently.
Nonsense. Just because they haven't seen my adventures doesn't mean I haven't been on them. Why, just last week, Piper and I got sucked into a square universe. I thought we were doomed.
Oh my gosh, were you all right?
Everything was all right. Angles.
Oh, I get it.
But yes, we eventually escaped after liberating a society of polygons from a trapezoid in which they'd been imprisoned.
Wow, you saved an entire civilization in another universe before thinking of yourselves?
Of course. They would have been rectangled had I not intervened.
You and Piper, you mean?
Yes, Piper was there too. Of course, it was my idea to transport them to a parallelogram dimension.
Are you joking with me right now, or are you being serious?
I am always serious.
No, is that why you never take off the hat?
No, I never take off the hat because bowler hats are neat. And it's alive. It's the same reason I don't remove the coat. That and heroes are meant to wear things that whirl.
Hang on, your clothes are alive?
Oh, yours not?
No. Well, I guess in so much as they're made of, like, plant fibers. Of course, a lot of it is polyester these days.
Well, that's interesting, but not remotely what I mean. My wardrobe is more than just clothes. We have what you might call a symbiotic relationship.
That is really fascinating. And actually it leads me to my questions, because humans don't know much about you, Inspector. I mean, let's see, you come from a race called...
Infinity Knights.
Infinity Knights, yep, there it is. But not much is known about Infinity Knights.
That is understandable. I'm the only one of my kind, after all.
Oh, like you're the last one?
Oh, no, the first.
Oh, well, then I guess it makes sense that you're such a mystery.
Indeed.
So, the connection you have with your clothes, do you have a similar relationship with your time machine?
Red? Yes, I suppose so, but Red is like 3 billion times more intelligent than my hat, and she will make sure you know it.
I bet.
What do you bet?
What?
What?
So, I asked your fans on the Inspector Chronicles Facebook page what questions they would ask you, and I'd like to run some of them by you.
If you must.
This came in from Aaron Jurgens. Did you get the thing I sent you?
Yes, Aaron, I did. Several times. And I enjoyed it 27% of the time. Thank you.
Next question from Marcia Q. Frysworth. When have you been?
I have been almost everywhere, Marcia. But mostly last Thursday. Every last Thursday, in fact, holds a special place in what would be my heart if I had one.
Thursday, huh?
But not this Thursday.
Last Thursday.
Precisely.
Cool. Well, I guess we have time for one more question. This is from Paul Denigris. Can you go back to 2016 and fix the timeline?
Paul, this question tugs on a string that, when pulled, will unravel the very sweater of the universe. Let's just say, I'm working on learning how to knit.
Okay, wow, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much to the Inspector for joining me.
You're most welcome.
As for you guys, if you have any questions for the Inspector, put them down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to get notified for new videos. And also please share this episode if you liked it. It helps me grow the channel and make more stuff for you.
Seems like a fair trade.
It is. I look forward to interviewing another one of my characters so you can all come inside me again. Until next time, bye-bye.
No, I'm letting it go.
So that'll actually go live in 24 minutes.
Did you enjoy that? Yeah. Did you enjoy coming inside, Travis?
Yeah.
I'm a child, I couldn't go. That was great. So how many are you looking to do with that?
I mean, literally, I have dozens of characters, so it's just a matter of writing all of them.
I've got to ask, how long did that take to do? Because having done a masquerade skit, well, it was when you were in it,
Yeah.
where we had to actually time ourselves to something that was on a screen.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nightmare.
Well, that particular style is something I perfected with the Two Hot Guys in the Shower. So I kind of have it down, like I filmed it in maybe an hour.
Okay.
And then it took, half a day to edit. But it's actually a super easy edit, as long as I get the things that I need. Like if you're a filmmaker, you just got to make sure you get your sound right, get everything right the first time, so you don't have to fix it later. But if you do that, then that's an easy edit.
Okay, that's great. So, and that's 24, so basically 7 p.m. it's going live?
Yes, 7 p.m. It's scheduled to go live on the YouTube channel.
Is there a hashtag you want people to Twitter right now for it? Come inside Travis, hashtag. Maybe not, actually. That could be a bad idea. That might not.
Do it for the clicks.
So one thing I do, I know that you started doing this as well. You're pushing to do more with the Inspector, but you're going a bit analog as well with the Inspector, because there's a little bit of prose coming, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, so this is the big announcement. So, okay. I got sent home from Japan early. I moved to Japan and I thought I was going to be there for a few years. Like, my plan was do it for 2 or 3 years, save up money, maybe then travel the world, do some acting in London, whatever.
Yep,
and then the pandemic happened and they sent us home early. Like, they canceled our contracts, which was a 13-month contract. They canceled it after 8 months. And so I had given up everything in LA. Like, I gave up my apartment, and I sold my car, I gave all away all my clothes and stuff. So I was like, I can't go back to LA. And I happened to have a friend in Nashville who had a spare room, and he's like, come stay with me. So I went there. And I very much just didn't want to feel like I was wasting my time. So I had this book that I'd had in my head for about 12 years. And it was originally going to be a movie, and then a writer friend of mine named Melinda Snodgrass, who you might know from Star Trek Next Generation, she helped me break the plot of the story. And finally I was like, you know what? I've pecked away at this book. I'm going to write it. And so it is a gay vampire love story, not a romance novel, but a love story. And I wrote it, and it's pretty good, and now it's being published. So I have a publisher, and we just announced the pre-order. I just put out little scan code next to the Blorgon.
It is available to pre-order on Amazon
right now.
It's available as Kindle, and it will be available as paperback.
So yeah, so the plan. So it's a Kindle right now. We'll be doing a print-on-demand paper version, a print version later. Very soon we'll be revealing the cover, and so that's great. And it's going to be a series, and that's wonderful. And it's good also because it is just another thing. I've got like 15 things I want to do. So
the title is?
Oh, it's called Decimus, the Vampire's Curse. Decimus is a Latin word, but basically there's a rule in this world. The twist on the vampire mythology is that when a vampire wants to turn a human, I don't know why this is a vampire thing already, but when a vampire wants to turn a human, it doesn't work most of the time. You still drain the human of blood, give them a little vampire blood, but then only about 10% of the time does it actually turn them into a vampire. So if a vampire falls in love with a human, you can't do that thing where you're like, I want to turn you so we can be together forever. Because there's a 90% chance you'll kill the person you love. And so that's where the drama comes from. But once I had a publisher, I was like, oh, what if we take this movie that's just languishing and we do a novelization of it? This Inspector movie. Because this publisher specializes in like nerdy content and stuff that comes to cons, and so and he was thrilled with the idea. So I am currently about 1/4 of the way through doing the novelization of the Inspector Chronicles. And that's going to be it's so exciting. It's going to be the next thing that comes out probably by Christmassy is what I'm hoping. So definitely by next Galley, it'll be something you can get.
And this is good because I'm from a generation where you'd have the film come out and it'd always be a novelization, usually about Alan Dean Foster or something like that.
There was usually something in the novel that wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, there's always like a few Easter eggs and things like that.
Yeah,
or if you always like the Target novelizations when you'd have Terrence Dicks forget what he wrote and do his own thing, and they were always great. But I'm a bit worried, Travis, because they know you as an actor, they know you as a director. you might need to convince them a little more that you're a writer.
Well,
Would you read a little to them?
Yes, I can, Tony.
No, I'm sorry, you don't want it enough. Would you read a little to them?
Frankly, I'd rather get that kind of applause after the reading, but...
One thing I will ask before you do the reading, because obviously, as somebody who works in publishing as well, who's gonna do the audio book?
I don't know yet. Probably me.
I was gonna say, it's gotta be you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing it for the vampire book, so...
So this is your audition as well?
This is my audition, exactly. So, is there anything I need to say before it? No, I don't think so. All right. The Inspector Chronicles, untitled novel about a space traveler who can also travel through time. Chapter 1, The Inspector. Subject, The Inspector. Classification, The Inspector. Booth notes. Frankly, if you are able to access this database, there should be no need to tell you who, what, and when the Inspector is, since this database is only accessible with the Inspector's express permission, and he would only grant said permission to someone who he knew very well. It just doesn't make any logical sense that he would know a person who also didn't know him. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're finding this massive collection of information from some inconceivable future where the Inspector no longer exists, and are trying to find out more about this legendary figure your presumably primitive culture has sung songs about. Or whispered stories if you can't actually carry a tune. If you don't even have a complex language yet, I don't even know what to do with you. Go away and come back when you're linguistically sophisticated. If your society can tell stories, the ones about the Inspector probably begin something like, once upon a time there existed a being, older than the gods and more cunning than something really, really cunning. And you would have been right about that part. You most likely continued along the lines of, his origin is unknown and his mission unclear, but what is clear is that he is good-ish. Pretty good. But sometimes in an anti-hero sort of way, like he'll occasionally do the wrong thing to get the good result. You know the type. And you would have nailed it on all counts. Even I don't know the Inspector's origin story. You can't ask his parents because just between you, me, and the statistically infinite number of people that could conceivably access this information between now and the end of time, I don't think the Inspector has any parents. He just is. What is he, you may ask? Well, that's a stupid question. Don't be sad, though. It's not your fault you're so ignorant. First of all, he is not always a he. But we'll ignore that for a moment. Let me see if I can explain it to you in small, easy-to-understand words. I assume your world had police, yes? Every world has police. Sometimes they go by other names, like peacekeepers, or sheriffs, or Rick. But the concept is the same. Every town, region, or country, or world in the universe has a group tasked with keeping bad things from happening, or more usually punishing those who do bad things because that's easier. The Inspector is kind of a universe police. We travel through space and time, as one might travel to the local market, and he rights wrongs. Oh, say, that wasn't so very hard. You probably get the idea, you primitive thing, you. Oh, I imagine you're asking, but right and wrong are subjective ideas dependent on the cultures that define them. Who decides which is which for this universe police person? Well, look who's being all morally sophisticated and using gender-neutral pronouns to boot. Well, maybe you're the tiniest bit more advanced than I gave you credit for. The answer, dear user, is that the Inspector decides. And usually the beneficiaries of his efforts are happy for it. Usually. You can't please everyone all the times. The Inspector has saved countless worlds throughout space-time, though. He does have a particular affinity for a fairly young little blue planet called Earth. He has saved Earth from certain destruction so many times, in fact, that when the residents of Great Britain needed to create a small place where one could publicly use the newly invented telephone device, they honored the Inspector by imitating the design of his time machine. And even named that place after the bioorganic omnidirectional time helix. The Inspector, in an uncharacteristic show of mutual appreciation, had me change the sign on the top of my top from the original Caliclashian to read telephone in Earth English. The Inspector is essentially immortal. He can be killed, sort of, but if he is, his body simply metamorphoses itself into a new form, which could look like anyone at all, but again, usually Earth-like, so as to get more accolades when he saves them. Injuries are repaired and he gains a completely new personality and wardrobe. Do I get a remodel and a new look? No, of course not. I'm just a sentient artificial intelligence. No respect for me. Where was I? Ah, the Inspector. Right, of course. I could go on and on about the Inspector, but I'm not a gossip. Go read a book if you can, and they still exist whenever you are. Please see also books, Reading for Dummies, Kaya Clash, Immortals, Space Travel, Time Travel, Planets Named Earth, Famous Ricks, End of booth note. Thank you for your time and space. The inspector had a secret. He was done. Finished. It was over for him. No more. No thanks. If someone had asked the inspector at this very moment, "Hey, Inspector, do you aim to continue being involved in adventure after adventure, traveling through space and time, attempting to fix those things which, to your mind, need fixing, and sometimes even succeeding in this attempt? Is it still your plan to always have an associate tagging along, even though their life is constantly in danger because of your, let's face it, unnecessary penchant for seeking out dangerous situations?" He would have replied, "What? Did someone say something?" Because the truth is, he wouldn't really have been listening at this very moment, so lost in thought was he. If, however, that same someone had repeated the questions and the inspector had listened to this time, his reply would have been, "Who are you? Why do you know my name? How do you know so much about my habits? Why should I be expected to answer you? I've killed before, so start talking, or so help me." And he might have even changed his posture so as to appear more threatening. If that same someone had then answered all of those questions to the inspector's satisfaction and then repeated yet again the same series of initial questions, the inspector would finally have had no choice. His answer would have been simple and direct. "Of course. I never give up such a fulfilling life. Go away now." In short, he would have lied. Because, as has already been established, the truth was his secret, and he planned to keep it that way for the time being. It wasn't that his life wasn't actually fulfilling, you understand. It was just that it had gone on for so very long, and as far as he knew, it planned to continue going on for a very long time yet. At the beginning, and even in the middle, and now occasionally here at the now, the adventures had been thrilling. Every this day was more exciting than the previous that day. Tomorrow always promised to be more exciting still, even when tomorrow ended up being yesterday. But now, things had become tiresome. He nearly always survived every adventure, and when he didn't, he inevitably resurfaced with a new face and a sense of fashion. Then there would be a short burst of new excitement, but that would only last a decade or so, practically nothing to an immortal infinity knight such as he. But he would continue wearing that body and face and wardrobe for anywhere from a century to a millennium or two. And have you ever worn the same shirt for a week straight? Boring, right? Multiply that by 1,000,000. His associates kept things a bit interesting, especially this latest one, Piper Tate, but eventually they all left him, or more often he grew tired of them and left them on some planet or other, or in some time or other, never to return. This had become a very annoying habit of his, as it now meant there were dozens of places and times he could never go. And that seemed really inconsiderate of past him to do to present him, even as present him inevitably kept doing the same thing to future him. He didn't quite know what he would do when he officially got out of the adventurer game. Maybe he'd become a florist. He could travel the world, finding the most exotic and beautiful flowers and plants, purchase them at a fair market price, mark up their prices exorbitantly, and then travel back in time to sell them to the very sellers who would later sell them to him. Except, well, where would he get the startup capital for such an endeavor? Plus, he'd have to come up with outlandish costumes so as not to be recognized as both buyer and seller. Then there was a small matter of why a seller would sell those flowers and plants to past him at a loss. No, blast it all. That was a stupid plan, and he'd think no more about it. Perhaps he'd become a psychic who would be able to predict with eerie accuracy any person's future. They'd never discover his secret, the trick that only he, a space and time-traveling genius, could have come up with. A trick that was so simple, so brilliant, if anyone found out, they'd kick themselves for not thinking of it sooner. Yes, to be the most accurate psychic the world would ever see, he'd simply hop into his time machine, the booth, and take a short trip to which is, of course, an entire planet of beings that can imbue a person with true psychic power. No, that would take way too long. Damn it all. So he didn't know what he'd do. He just knew he was bored and wished not to be bored, so he needed a change of pace. He needed something surprising to happen. He hadn't properly been surprised in longer than he cared to figure. Take this latest adventure, for instance. He and Piper had stumbled upon an especially loyal breed of being, the Neniac, who Piper had taken to referring to as dog people. This had angered the Neniac rulers, eventually resulting in what would become known as the Grand War of the Neniac. The inspector had prevented things from getting too far out of hand, all while making sure Piper never knew her role in the near destruction of an entire species. But frankly, it hadn't been that difficult. The inspector wasn't capable of sweating, but he deeply suspected that even if he could have, he would not have broken one during this escapade. And now, here they were, the inspector and Piper, being honored by the Neniac High Council. The inspector couldn't even remember if the Neniac were giant, anthropomorphic dog-like beings, or if they were crazy, people-shaped things who acted like dogs. He could easily have raised his head and looked around the giant arena, where he and Piper were currently surrounded by every surviving member of the Neniac, but why bother? Better to just take whatever medal or plaque or key or whatever it was they wanted to bestow upon these two heroes and to be off. Plus, he was annoyed at these dog people. They kept referring to some other hero, the man in the gray coat, they called this man. It never occurred to the inspector that the colorblind maniac were talking about the inspector himself. No. All it did was make the inspector self-conscious about his own flowing blue coat and resentful of this man in the gray coat because, hey, just because he didn't feel particularly heroic right now didn't mean he was okay with some other jerk being adored, some other stupid gray-coated jerk. Stupid dog people. Stupid adventures. Stupid everything. He already knew where he wanted to go next. A peaceful little planet in one of the farthest reaches of time and space. A place that Piper would surely love. The perfect place to tell her that he wouldn't be continuing the adventurer lifestyle. The perfect place to leave her behind, never to return should it come to that. He had already decided he would put on a brave face for the girl's sake. He didn't want to tip her off. No, he would give her a week or so of exploring the peaceful planet, and he'd allow her to dictate the goings-on while there. Then, once he knew she was really happy, he'd tell her his secret. He tried to smile on. It felt uncomfortable. But he'd get better. He'd do it right for her. She deserved at least that much. He did, after all, think she was kind of all right. The end of chapter 1. But what's funny is none of that is in anything that we've done so far. We just we wrote all new stuff, and so it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And this is available from today.
This is not available for quite a while.
To pre-order from today.
No. You just have to wait for this.
Oh, so Decimus is pre-ordering today.
Decimus is pre-orderable today,
so
and the better that does, the better this will do. But,
when are you looking to have this out?
I'm still writing this.
Yeah, but when would you like to have it out?
But definitely by Christmas.
So by next Gallifrey,
oh, yes, absolutely.
You would have books for people to buy.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
We have...
And the audio? The audiobook is, I'm not sure how long that takes. This is, Decimus is my first book, so I'm new to this whole publishing thing. You might be able to tell me how long after a book comes out that an audiobook follows?
The same day. Genuinely,
Really?
Every day, I write as Jack Gatland, and every day a book comes out by Jack Gatland, I get emails going, where's the audiobook? If you can get it out as quick as possible, most people will do day and date.
Oh, yeah?
So, but if you've got
There's
enough
no
time
benefit
ahead...
to having, this thing available now, and then, some people buy the book, but then they also buy the audiobook later?
No, because then blind people can't know your story. They have. It's one of the reasons why audiobooks work so well.
Yeah. I'm working on it. I'm working on both. I'm new at this, so, but definitely.
Or
coming.
you could also add a thing where they would pay it and you would just go round their house and just read the book to them. I think there's a few people here who would quite happily have you come round their house and read the book to them.
Yes, nice. I'll happy to do that.
You have to feed them.
You have to. Do you have to feed him? Was that? Yeah, I'd probably say yes, maybe. I mean, you would
Depends
like.
on how far I go, right? I mean. Yes, exactly.
We've got about 5 minutes, so I think. Do you want to see if there's any questions?
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
Yep.
We all know that Mike Myers is an actual fan of James Bond, despite Austin Powers. And I was wondering, what's your relationship with Dr. Who proper? Are you a legit fan?
Doctor Who? No.
It's a 60s film with Peter Cushing.
Yeah. No. So I've answered this before, and my relationship with Doctor Who is pretty complicated. I watched it when I was a kid. My older brothers would watch the stuff on PBS, and Tom Baker was my first Doctor. But I was young enough that when Tom Baker regenerated, I didn't get what was going on, and I kind of just checked out. But I was always surrounded by friends who, I had a friend my locker partner in middle school had a TARDIS console replica in his bedroom. And we would play with that, and we would be, doing the theme song. So it was always kind of there. And then when I got the Inspector Spacetime audition, I knew somehow that they were referencing Matt Smith in the script. I think they said something about a bow tie. And I was like, oh, the new guy has bow ties. So I went back and watched his first episode, and it was great. And so when I got cast, I immediately started rewatching from Chris Eccleston on, and then watched it so fast and then I had to do Torchwood, because then at one point, Captain Jack's shows up, and I'm like, I missed something. There's a whole series here that I missed, so I watched Torchwood. and then I watched it all again because I watched it too fast the first time. So yes, I'm a fan. I tend to be a very equal opportunity fan. Like I love Star Trek, I love Star Wars, but I'm also kind of critical. So I'm not unforgiving.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri has literally just gone, I'm not sure I understand that. The technology is now unhappy that you've just gone, I'm critical of sci-fi. I don't think you'll be honest. I think I've worked out who's been trying to destroy your life. It's Siri.
It's true, it's true.
We had some hands. Yes.
So just because you've been playing with Inspector Spacetime for so long, how fleshed out would you say the world is in your head? Like in terms of stuff that you haven't even put on paper yet, you just have ideas for the depth of the world.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like I feel it's weird when a character lives inside you for so long, how just kind of a part of you it is, and it's not. It's weird because it's not the only character I've played for a long time, but something about the Inspector really clicks with me, and so we do there's so much about we did a lot of world building for our series, and then fans stepped in and did a lot of world building too, and we actually worked with them to do stuff. One example that's my favorite is that when there was when the first season of the web series came out, some blog, can't remember what it was, did an article on us, and in the bottom they said, follow Tarvis on Twitter, with a link to my Twitter. And so I posted the article to the Facebook page, and I said, this is a great article, parentheses, needs a little editing, and then I put, follow Tarvis. And in the comments of that post, fans created an entire history of this character named Tarvis, who was a mechanical flying squirrel who would appear to help and lead the Inspector to safety. And there was a wiki page overnight, and so we were in the middle of writing the movie, so we wrote Tarvis into the movie, and so stuff like that happens a lot, and we take some, we give some. Hopefully the fans we did circuit chaps for the series, and they became part of it, and we expand their whole world here in the book, and so yeah, there's a lot.
I've got to say, so I hadn't clicked that you've changed your Gallifrey badge to an Inspecticon badge. That is brilliant.
Oh my god.
I kind of feel I really have. The entire thing started with me saying this is a multiple world and we're not actually at a Doctor Who convention, and now she's just breaking my mind.
Yeah. Again, your fault.
I know.
The first panel we did was a Liars panel where everybody talked about their favorite Inspector Spacetime moments for this 50-year-old show at the time.
We had an entire PowerPoint presentation of all the inspectors. And it was Stephen Fry was one.
Yeah. It was Steve Carell did the movie,
yeah,
which was very well done.
Very well received.
Yeah, everybody loved the TV.
We have time for one last question. Do we have one last? Oh, yep, straight up, yes.
What's up with Oscar the Grouch if he was a Dalek?
Oscar the Grouch if he was a Dalek.
That is one of the Blorgons. That is actually one of the Blorgons from Community that was actually in the show, and that's Brian's Blorgon. And so he's here to take pictures with if you want. Yeah, it's really cool. And what's funny is Blorgons, because in the show we say, the constable says, Inspector, look out, Blorgons! And so at first everybody thought it was Blogons. And so then we had to correct the fandom and be no, it's Blorgons. And then in the show, again, kind of this recursive fandom, Abed has a line that says, no, actually, Blorgon is Blorgon for something. Thank you. So yeah, it's great. I love. It's just so much. I'm part of this fandom, so it's great to be I don't know, the center of something so big. Anyway.
And with that, unfortunately, it is time to finish.
I love you guys, and I just want to say that none of this would have been possible without you and the rest of the fans who rallied behind it. And it's because of Gally and this that makes it possible. It's not all I'm doing. There's other stuff coming, so by next year there should be some really interesting things to show you. So even if the movie doesn't happen, I don't want people to be too disappointed. There will always be something fun that I want to bring to you, because what is my life purpose is to entertain you guys. So I appreciate you guys being entertained. Thanks.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Travis Richey. And obviously, if you're looking to cosplay for next Gallifrey, sexy vampires, I think, is the thing.